The George Weasley of the Final Fantasy tank range.
'Cause they're holy! You get it?
The Paladin has been a main staple in Final Fantasy for decades. Cecil, Beatrix, Jack, the one time I played Strangers of Paradise and blew up a Tonberry.
Oh dear God, the poor Tonberry!
And now it is you who have donned the mantle of this inter-cosmic crusader and want to know where to start. And with this guide I am going to help you defeat your enemies with the power of God and anime on your side. Mostly this anime. Now before we start, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell thingy, and follow and host me on the Twitch and Twitters for fun moments like this. Smashed! You, Margaret! Now, this isn't a tanking guide. If you want to learn how to be a better tank, click on the card at the top right of the screen. Also, this guide is relevant to the recent 6.1 patch for Endwalker. Gotta keep updated. With that said, I am Tech, and this is my ultimate beginner's guide to being the best paladin you can possibly be. Probably. Now, the paladin can be seen as this ultimate shield of the party, focusing a fair few of its defensive moves to team protection. These are all fueled by the unique mechanic, Shield Oath. So at level 35, the Paladin will unlock the Oath gauge. This, as I said before, fuels a lot of your key defensive skills, and will fill up every time you land an auto attack. The big value though is that this gauge will always be full when entering a duty, so you don't have to worry about the struggle to build the gauge and survive an onslaught of enemy mobs. But we are getting ahead of ourselves here. Before we can crusade in the Highlander fashion,
Seriously, what was this storyline?
as with the original Final Fantasy where the fighter would evolve into a knight, you begin your journey as a fledgling gladiator at the Gladiators Guild, found here in Uldar if you didn't pick the class starting out. In choosing this class, you'll be slapped with the trait Tank Mastery, reducing your overall damage by 20% but boosting your maximum HP and vitality, which is a very fancy way of saying you tank now. Moves are as followed. We start with Fast Blade, your default move. It delivers a simple attack that deals a reasonable 150 damage potency. Nothing really more to say on it though just yet. At level 2 we gain the off-global cooldown Fight or Flight. This sits on a 60-second cooldown and increases your physical damage by 25% for 25 seconds. This is one of your simple but powerful button options. When a fight starts you can pop this and enemies will die quicker, but it ties into so many moves that you will learn, making it one of the key pillars to your foundation. Next we have Riot Blade at level 4. This is a combo follow-up attack for Fast Blade. It deals 230 potency, which isn't too shabby, even if there's nothing more to really say at the moment. But with this, we have a chance to start the foundation of our single target opener. At the core of this guide, I want us to have a natural progression to our level 90 opener. So for now, we'll just start with Fast Blade. And we'll pop Fight or Flight for the damage buff, and then follow up with Riot Blade, then Fast Blade, Riot Blade, rinse and repeat that combo until Fight or Flight is available again. It's not much, but it's a start. This is your strongest single target option for most of your early levels, but it's a bit of a hassle switching from one enemy to the next, just to keep that aggro, right? And that was the segue to our level 6 as we learn Total Eclipse, your main go-to move for 3 enemies or higher. So you pop Fight or Flight while spamming Total Eclipse until 1 or 2 enemies remain, then you use your single targets. Good? Good. At level 10 we learn both Iron Will and Shield Bash. Iron Will is your tank stance. This makes you the tank by making your attacks gain more enmity, which I cover more in my tanking guide. Don't forget to go watch my tanking guide. Shield Bash is your primary stun attack. It will stun a target for 6 seconds with the duration shortening every use until the enemy is fully resistant. Now, unlike the roll ability leg sweep, you can use it as many times as you want at the cost of it being on your global cooldown, meaning if you have already used, say, Fast Blade and the enemy charges their attack, 1, you will have to wait until your next action is ready to stun them, and 2, if you do, you will interrupt your combo, meaning you will have to start again from Fast Blade. Still, it's mitigation, as that is 6 seconds that the enemy won't be attacking you. At level 15, we learn Shield Lob, a long-range projectile that is basically your initiating attack, for the most part. It sits on the global cooldown, deals 100 potency worth of damage, and it has the effect of increased enmity, meaning a greater chance the enemy is now targeting you. For grouped mobs, you won't really be using this, as Provoke is a much better option for the initial pull, but on bosses, it's the first attack. Example wise, you run in, use Shield Lob, pop the Provoke for good measure, then go into your Fast Blade and continue the opener from there. The reason it's the first attack is because of that 20 yarm range. This guarantees that you are the target, and by the time the boss and you have met up at the middle, you will have all the aggro you need and your Fast Blade at the ready. Next is Rage of Halone, unlocked at level 26, and this is the final piece to our 1-2-3 combo. It deals a whopping 330 potency worth of damage, and this combo is our overall filler, and you will always gravitate to it until something else needs to be used. At level 30, we will shed our gladiator's skin and take on the job of Paladin, unlocking our first job action, Spirits Within. Why they named it after that movie, I have no idea, but this sits on a 30-second cooldown and delivers a swift stab that deals a decent 270 potency worth of damage. It's also our first off global cooldown attack, meaning when you use something like your Rage of Halone combo and those attacks are on cooldown, you can use this attack as a sort of gap filler for more damage. And with this, I think we can afford a somewhat recap of our opener, as now we have enough skills to get the overall beat drummed in. So as always, we start with Shield Lob to get that aggro. Throw in Provoke for good measure. As we reach the boss, we hit Fast Blade. Into Fight or Flight for the increase, then Riot Blade, Rage of Halone, Fast Blade into Spirits Within, Riot Blade, Rage of Halone, and then it's just our 1-2-3 combo until Fight or Flight is ready again. Now right here, we basically have our structure. All we will be doing from now on as we advance is adding a move here or there, or swapping a Rage of Halone combo out for better options. Okay? Okay. If you remember, at level 35, we unlock our Oath Gauge, alongside Sheltron, probably the move you will spend your Oath Gauge on the most. This sits on a pleasant 5-second cooldown and blocks attacks for 4 seconds. So to explain this, let's put this into a tabletop situation. The enemy declares an attack. They have to roll to see if it lands, and the roll is good. Now you get to make a defensive roll. Most classes and jobs in the game get one defensive option, the parry, and this will negate around 15% of the incoming damage. Otherwise it's a direct hit for full, but the Paladin has a shield, so they get an extra option to that roll, and that is block. This negates around 20% of incoming damage, and Sheltron guarantees that block on every attack within that 4-second window. It's not much time, but hey, that 4 seconds is great for a tank buster. At level 38, we learn Sentinel, our unique damage mitigation tool. This sits on a blasphemous 2-minute cooldown and reduces incoming damage by 30% for 15 seconds. Like I say in the tank guide, this alongside Sheltron, Rampart, Reprisal and Arm's Length will keep you alive in big giant pulls.
Seriously, it's a good guide. Put it on your watch list.
Next is Prominence at level 40, and this is the follow-up attack to Total Eclipse, dealing a potency damage of 170 to all nearby enemies. So in a mob of 3 enemies or higher, pull the enemies in with provoke and pop fight and flight while spamming this 1-2 combo until only 1 enemy remains. Okay, we are at the halfway point now, and at 45 we get our next shield off ability in the form of Cover, a Final Fantasy staple. Cover sits on another tear-jerking 2-minute cooldown and allows you to receive the damage intended for your targeted party member for 12 seconds. Its effect is displayed by this little tether. Move too far away and they will lose the coverage. This move is great if you are the off-tank in sections where you want to bypass a tank swap mechanic. Say, if the main tank has 2 stacks of a debuff and the 3rd and final one is on the way, you can just apply cover and jump in front of Whitney Houston for the save. Or if you just want to make sure a struggling DPS or healer don't die during normal runs, Cover's got your back. At level 50, reaching the end of A Realm Reborn, we unlock both Circle of Scorn and Hallowed Ground. Circle of Scorn sits on a pleasing 30-second cooldown and applies a 30 potency damage over time onto all enemies in the area of effect for 15 seconds. This is both used in your AoE rotation and your single target because why not? It's off the global cooldown, does decent damage, and is improved by fight or flight. So, as usual, we'll start with Shield Lob, throw in Provoke for good measure, land Fast Blade, then pop Circle of Scorn, then Fight or Flight, as this guarantees they are both synced up every 60 seconds. Then we go into Riot Blade and Rage of Halone. Then after the second Fast Blade, we pop Spirits Within, and finish off that 1-2-3 combo. Then we'll just spam 1-2-3 combos until Circle of Scorn comes off cooldown. Then there is Hallowed Ground, the ultimate defense. This sits on a 420-second cooldown and grants you damage immunity to most attacks for 10 seconds. This is your oh shit button, and the best of its kind, hence the overly long ass cooldown. This is used if you're gonna die next hit, or if the mob is overpowering you and the healer can't cope. Hopefully by the time the 10 seconds is over, there'll be less enemies on the field, meaning less damage you are taking. Now at level 50 you can't get as straightforward as this. I mean, our biggest super move of the expansion was either an AoE dot or straight up invincibility. Compared to what we will get at the end, it's just nice to see how the jobs gradually evolve. So, moving into Heaven's Ward at level 54, we unlock Goring Blade, the second option to our 1-2-3 combo, which I call a 1-2-4 combo. You see, this can be used instead of Rage of Halone, and while it's less damage as a combo ender, being only 250 potency, it also adds a 65 potency damage over time to that target that lasts for 21 seconds. Better yet, that Goring Blade dot stacks with Circle of Scorn, so more damage over time overall. This Goring Blade combo replaces the first Rage of Halone in our opener. That way we get the most damage out of that fight or flight window. Then it's just a matter of reapplying it when it's about to end. At level 56, we learn Divine Veil. This sits on a 90-second cooldown, and it's a bit of a weird 2-effect skill. On its own, it applies a status effect on you that does absolutely nothing, but lasts for 30 seconds. However, the moment you receive healing from magic, so a healer ability, it will trigger, casting out a barrier worth 10% of your maximum HP to every party member but yourself. And I have to stress this, you don't get anything. So don't treat this as a negation tool if you are taking damage, because it will not benefit you. No, this is for when you know a big raid-wide hit is coming. You pop Divine Veil, healer heals you as you popped Sheltron for yourself, and there you go, everyone's safe. The biggest downside to this move is getting that synergy with your party, especially if it's a bunch of randoms, let alone the fact that it's a 2-phase activation, meaning you sort of need to know when the attack is coming in order to load up your party mitigations all within the charge window. Also, when it says magic, I'm pretty sure there's also like a direct healing limit too. As far as I could tell, my Chocobo's Choco Regen didn't trigger it, but Choco Cure did. So yeah, get a healer friend to help test what works and what doesn't. Still, relying on your healer to time that heal with your Veil is a big ask. You can't expect someone to get it right all the time. And that is where Clemency comes in. Unlocked at level 58, this magic spell costs a butchering 4000 MP and heals for 1000 potency, with the added boon of healing you 50% of that potency if you cast it on a party member. But to be honest, that's not what it's really for. Sure, you can opt to use Clemency while you're in a big pull, but that's just wasting MP, DPS output, and more than likely pissing your healer off, because they will notice that you have used Clemency, and it just ain't worth the aggro. No, it's there so you can heal yourself in solo fights, or most importantly, to activate Veil on your terms. That way you saved the day, healers didn't waste MP, and we'll all synergize pretty well. So because we are spending MP now, the trait Chivalry will now come into effect, granting both Riot Blade and Spirits Within the ability to restore MP. Riot Blade restoring 1000 MP, while Spirits Within restoring a lower 500. Not much, but it helps. Finally, as our Heavensward tale comes to a close, at level 60, Rage of HALONE evolves into Royal Authority, dealing more damage and looking way cooler. So yes, opener wise, nothing really changes too much here. We have our one new offensive tool in the Goring Blade combo, and the rest is pretty much the same beaten flow. So for our level 60 opener, we are basically doing the same stuff. Shield Lob into Provoke, Fast Blade into Circle of Scorn, then Fight or Flight, Riot Blade, the new Goring Blade to apply the new dot, Fast Blade into Spirits Within, Riot Blade, and finally Royal Authority. Then we add another Royal Authority combo into that, and then finish with our Goring Blade combo, making sure to use Circle of Scorn when it comes off cooldown. Now at level 62, we unlock Intervention, our last shield oath ability. This sits on a flattering 10-second cooldown and applies a 10% damage mitigation to your targeted party member. This can be increased by another 10% if you have Rampart or Sentinel up when you use it. Now whether that's 10% each, making it around 30%, or just a flat 10%, I couldn't tell. It's not really as important. In reality, it's just Sheltron for your teammates. Nothing really special about it. It's great to protect the main tank during a tank buster or keeping a healer safe from a big raid-wide move. But yeah, moving on. At level 64, we learn Holy Spirit, one of our key, most important moves in the game. But for now, the replacement for Shield Lob as our opening attack. This deals a decent 270 potency damage and will cost a still hefty 2000 MP if we didn't just also unlock the trait Divine Magic Mastery at the same time, halving the costs of all the Paladin spells, meaning this is now a perfectly reasonable 1000 MP. It also adds some nice needed poise to the spell casts. In the future, this move is key to our big single party burst damage, but right now it is our main long range option. So whenever there's a part in the fight where up close and personal isn't an option, say there's a mechanic where you have to hide behind an object and it's out of melee range, that is where you'll be using Holy Spirit. At 66, Prominence gains the ability to restore 500 MP thanks to the enhanced Prominence trait. This is a flat 500 MP that's tied to the attack landing. It doesn't matter how many opponents are hit, you will just get 500 back. Again, that'll be great for later on. Now at 68, we unlock the next piece to our big burst puzzle. Requiescat is another off-global cooldown attack that sits on a tough but fair 60-second cooldown. This deals a whopping 400 potency worth of unexpected damage and grants 5 stacks of the Requiescat buff. This increases your holy spell's potency and removes the cast time for 30 seconds or until you use up all 5 stacks. This is our burst. We replace things here and there, but the moment we use REQUIESCAT, we are spamming Holy Spirit. This also drastically changes our opener, but we'll save that for the Stormblood opener section. Finally, at Stormblood's end, we learn Passage of Arms, the party's true shield. This sits on a ball-breaking if you move 2-minute cooldown, and places you in auto block mode a la SHELTRON, but will also create a cone behind you that will mitigate 15% of all damage coming your party's way for 18 goddamn seconds. However, just as my cooldown joke referred to, this move will cancel itself if you so much as sneeze. If the cat jumps up onto your table and accidentally taps the move key, or if you've dropped your pad thumbstick first, oh well, better luck next time, noob. Honestly, it took me so long to get used to not adjusting my character to get this move down than I care to admit. But when you do, nothing beats meeting a big attack head on with a Divine Veil than a Passage of Arms. Honestly, it makes you feel like an absolute unit. Back onto the opener, and as I said, we now have a bit of a drastic change to what we're used to. We now have our burst option, but the flow is going to go pretty much the same way. So we are replacing Shield Lob with a Slide Cast Holy Spirit, and our opener is still the same, but as we reapply our Goring Blade, we are now weaving REQUIESCAT in there. Then it's Holy Spirit into Circle of Scorn, and then we are just spamming the rest of those Holy Spirits until the 5th one is done. Then we are just reapplying our Goring Blade while popping spirits within somewhere in that 1-2-4 combo. Again, everything you've learned so far, that rhythm doesn't change. It's a simple Simon Says game. We are just extending things and evolving things over time. Speaking of which, at level 72, we unlock Holy Circle, the AoE version of Holy Spirit. This deals 130 potency damage to all enemies nearby, which isn't much, not really worth the time to cast it. But this move is also enhanced by REQUIESCAT, and that 130 potency gets bumped up to a 300 potency attack that you can spam up to 5 times. That is like 1500 potency overall.
The numbers don't lie!
So in a wall-to-wall situation, you're going to go for that total eclipse into the Circle of Scorn and Fight or Flight. Then we hit Prominence, pop REQUIESCAT, and then spam Holy Circle until you lose all stacks. And then it's back to total eclipse and Prominence. Throw in your mitigations to make sure you don't die, and no one will ever complain or question you on your tanking ability ever again. At level 74, SHELTRON will extend its effect time to 6 seconds from 4 with enhanced SHELTRON trait. Thanks, I guess. But that's not all. We also learn Intervene, our gap closer. This sits on a calm 30-second cooldown, has 2 charges, and allows you to close in from 20 yards to deliver a 150 potency attack. Again, this is an off-global cooldown, so can be weaved into our rotation, which, to be honest, is usually its primary use. At 76, Royal Authority gains the Sword Oath trait, granting you 3 stacks of Sword Oath for 30 seconds. You spend these stacks on your new attack, Atonement. This move sits on the global cooldown and delivers a strong 390 potency attack that will also restore 500 MP. This move shakes up our opener a bit. Once you use the first Royal Authority, we will be going straight into those 3 atonements, weaving Intervene after the first and second. Finally, at level 80, we learn Confiteor and start to awaken that REQUIESCAT burst potential. This move costs 1000 MP and deals 900 potency to all enemies near the target. It requires you to be in REQUIESCAT, so it needs just 1 stack to be used. This means it becomes the 5th and final attack in our REQUIESCAT burst window. replacing that 5th Holy Spirit. And as it counts as an AoE attack, that also goes the same for our 5th Holy Circle. So we have hit level 80 and it's time to put our opener back together again. It's all flowing from what we've learned before. So we start by slide casting Holy Spirit and using Provoke for good measure. Now we hit Fast Blade into Circle of Scorn and Fight or Flight, opening our damage window. Riot Blade, Goring Blade to get that dot, then another Fast Blade into Spirits Within, Riot Blade, then Royal Authority. Now we go into Atonement 1, into Intervene, Atonement 2 into our last Intervene, then Atonement 3, back into Fast Blade, Riot Blade, then Goring Blade into Requiescat for the burst of Holy Spirit 1 into Circle of Scorn, Holy Spirit 2, Holy Spirit 3, Holy Spirit 4, and finally Confiteor, finishing with the final Goring Blade combo. Then it's just rotate Royal Authority and Atonement, keeping up your dots. And that is the full opener into rotation. This shows the evolution from just a simple fighter to becoming the holy knight we so much admired. And as we move into our level 90, it only gets better from here. Now most of these moves are more quality of life changes, but still they alter the paladin into one of the more bulky tanks. So at 82, Sheltron upgrades to Holy Sheltron via Sheltron Mastery, increasing its duration to 8 seconds while also granting Knight's Resolve, a 15% damage reduction for 4 seconds, and Knight's Benediction, a 250 potency regen that lasts for 12 seconds. In the same breath, Intervention gains the same upgrade, thanks to the Enhanced Intervention trait. Now this is probably what these moves should have been in the first place. They give us more survivability, and even outshine the move they were supposed to be living up to. At 84, the tank receives a damage boost to all main attacks thanks to melee mastery. But the biggest upgrade is to Holy Spirit, Holy Circle, and Confiteor, as now with Divine Magic Mastery 2, say that 10 times fast, they all now heal you for 400 potency. And this will also trigger Divine Veil. So now you can cause damage when you want to trigger your team mitigation. This 400 potency makes wall to walls a lot more comfortable now, as the healer has a little more leeway in the DPS output, and combined with Holy Sheltron, you are going to be a lot better off. At level 86, Spirits Within evolves into EXPACION, becoming an AoE attack dealing a higher 340 potency attack to the target, but dropping 50% on everyone else nearby it. This means that 1, we get another AoE attack to throw into our AoE rotation, and 2, a stronger attack overall, without having to alter the rotation we already have single target wise. At 88, Divine Veil adds a 400 potency heal to itself, thanks to the Enhanced Divine Veil trait. Nothing really much to say on this, it's extra heals, so all good. And finally, it is time. At level 90, Requiescat gains the perk Blade of Faith ready, granting you the combo of Blades of Faith, Truth, and Valor upon Requiescat's end. So either after Confiteor, or a botched 5th Holy Spirit or Circle, or the timer just running out. And this new buff also lasts for 30 seconds. But enough about that, let's talk about the actual skills. Blade of Faith deals a 420 potency attack to the target that drops 50% to remaining enemies, while restoring 500 NP and cures you for 400 potency, just like Confiteor. Blades of Truth deals 500 potency attack with the same 50% drop off, and restores another 500 MP and cures for 400 potency again. And finally, Blade of Valor deals a 580 potency attack with the same 50% drop off to remaining enemies, restores 500 MP, and oh look, cures for 400 potency. But as one final bonus, it applies a 80 potency damage over time to the target, with a 50% drop off to all remaining enemies. and this lasts for 21 seconds. The one downside is it can't be stacked with Goring Blade's dot. Circle of Scorn is okay, but Goring Blade is a no-no. So that means our opener stays exactly the same as level 80, bar one change. We remove that final Goring Blade combo and just use the natural REQUIESCAT progression. Everything else, rotation-wise, stays the same. Like I've said, I've tried to fit this opener in as natural to your play as possible. And I know this is nowhere near optimal, but optimal usually is a fight-by-fight basis. This is just the stepping stone. Overall, the Paladin is a slow burner. It's simplistic, and even when things look like they are gonna go crazy with holy swords flying everywhere like it's the gates of Babylon reopening, it still keeps that same flow about it. As for how good a tank it is, well, its self-sustain is good. You have by the endgame a mitigation skill that has decent regen and a burst option that completely heals you. It's nothing special, but it's a lot more than some tanks have. But there are some downsides. Divine Veil, as I said, requires a heal to activate and will only affect your team, not you. This is the only case of a raid-wide protection where this happens. This means you have to again work things out with your healer to get the timing of Veil out, or you are casting Clemency/Holy Spirit and then using your personal mitigation all before the enemy's attack is charged. That's not an easy task. It's doable, but it requires a good knowledge of the fight and or reflexes. Still, the Paladin has that ease of use and is great for first time tanks, and with it being the current flagship job, it shows Square tried to make it as appealing as possible. Just remember you've got enough healing abilities and mitigation tools to keep yourself alive. Keeping enmity and doing rotations, that all comes in time. Main part is to keep yourself alive by checking out my other tank guide. Keep that in mind and you will turn that darkness into hallowed light in no time. And if you want to turn darkness into hallowed light, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell thingy, and follow/host me on the Twitch and Twitters. Also, if you've got any tips and tricks that you found yourself, don't forget to put them in the comments section below. And finally, tune in next time where the rage be building and our cleaves be felling with the warrior. But until that day, this has been TeknoOdin. Stay safe, claim skulls, smash bosses, and take care.